Hi again, everybody, and welcome to Around the Town with Chuck. My name is Chuck Guglielmo, and we are here at the New Leaf Event Center recording today's show on Friday, April the 17th. And you are all watching on YouTube, and we thank you for viewing us. My guest today is John Broom. John is a person I knew of, but never met in person until Jim Coco's Sunrise Live morning show. He has quite a resume, and we're going to talk a lot about his resume, one segment by each other segment. And I want to start with what he's currently doing for the Ashtabula Regional Medical Center. Media relations, media director, what is it actually
Public
called?
Relations Coordinator is the official title, which means I do all of our internal and external communications. So a lot of the news articles that you see are on social media. Those are posts that I put out. I don't deal directly with advertising, but every week, but do some of the advertising as well, and public appearances when we need to. I usually try to stay behind the scenes on a lot of the stuff. So normally I would be behind the camera doing doing the filming or doing some interviews that way, but. I keep my hand in a little bit of everything as far as media public relations.
Yeah, and ARMC does a good job. I know Jim and I had somebody on the show yesterday. It may have been your boss.
It was my boss, Tina Stashevsky.
And I remember saying, John has a boss?
No. Vice President of Business Development. So yeah, we all have bosses, right? And I'm glad to have a boss because we have discussion, we make decisions and everything, but there's always someone higher there that can say that's a good idea, or let's rework that a little bit. So,
well, your features on the morning show are fantastic. We enjoy having ARMC there. And how long have you been with the medical center?
This will be my 16th year.
Wow.
Yeah. So it doesn't seem that long.
Always in the same position?
Always in the same position, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Started there in, so that would be, 2010? Yeah.
Wow. Now, how have you seen media relations with the medical center grow throughout the years?
I think the biggest thing is, I had this conversation the other day with our website vendor. When I first started, it seemed like Ashtabula County trailed behind the rest of the country as far as what people were doing on cell phones and different things by about 6 months to a year. I mean, whatever was going on, you know how vendors are with the latest, greatest computer stuff. They call you and say, oh, you have to be in this because everybody's doing it. And it's like everybody in LA may be doing it, everybody in Chicago may be doing it, but not in rural Ashtabula County. So our statistics when I first started, roughly 70 to 80% of the people accessed our website from their desktop computer. Not laptop, desktop computer. Even in 2010. So you think, when was the cell phone, what was the evolution of the cell phone, things like that. Even in 2010, people were still accessing via desktop. That is completely changed now, where it's 80 to 90% mobile on a cell phone, maybe a tablet. Mostly, primarily on your cell phone. That's probably the biggest change, and more video work. Obviously, you guys recognize that as providing video service and cable service and streaming. And everything like that. It's such a big transition from the way it used to be. And my uncle owned a telephone company down in Fulton, Mississippi, and expanded to cable TV. Back in the day when you went from 3 channels or 4 channels to 20 channels or whatever, and everybody was happy.
Now there are hundreds.
Yes, and so, kind of growing up in that environment of hearing what they were doing technology-wise compared to what we do today, it's just fascinating to think about just the short term, my time at the hospital, but even the last 30 or 40 years, how things have really accelerated.
John, can you recognize some of the staff that works for you or with you?
Sure. Allison Loudermilk is our community outreach coordinator. She has been on with you guys before.
Yes.
On Sunrise Live, and we were so she's directly in my department. She works for Tina as well. And we're kind of a little 3-person crew there. We do a lot of the
Outreach.
a lot of the outreach. She also goes and talks to the physicians and other providers in the area to remind them of the services that we offer. And that's pretty much the business development department. Now, Tina has some other folks that work with her through occupational health or ARNC Wellness Center, which used to be Premier Fitness. So there's other people that report up to her. But as far as marketing and business development, it's just the 3 of us. And we may occasionally get a summer hire or someone that's there for an internship or something. But generally, it's the 3 of us doing the bulk of the work.
Well, the 3 of you do a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Allison Loudermilk. Let's talk a little bit about her because she's one fantastic person.
She is.
And she has this program, and you could talk about other programs. I think it's called Dinner with a Doc or Q&A with a Doc. Can you talk a little bit about that?
It was called Dinner with a Doc. The new name, which I think we went to maybe last year's Dinner with ARNC. And
So that's the official title
That's the
now.
official title, Dinner with ARNC. And we have one coming up next month, and I'm drawing a blank on the date. I think it's the 21st, May 21st. But that will be one of our family medicine providers, Danny Zapp. She's well known in the Geneva and Ashtabula area. She grew up in the county, and she's been with us for a few months, and people absolutely love her. She is going to be talking on a variety of topics. She actually spoke for us last year at one of the dinners about the changes in the food pyramid and some fact versus fiction on what we hear, because we all hear things on the internet. And suddenly, maybe you don't feel well. You're doing research on something, and you're like, "Oh, I got that. I got that." And especially if you're, I'm the type person. A lot of times, I can read something and think, "Oh, am I getting that? The symptoms are,
yeah, that's me too.
Yeah, and it's interesting how our minds and our bodies kind of play tricks on us.
Not to interrupt, but I said that to my doctor once. I read what this is supposed to be online. He said, "That's the problem. Don't read it."
Don't read it. Don't read it. Which is fun, and I have to remind people of that because it comes down to. I don't want to use the word expert or authoritative because that has a connotation to it, but you want those experts that you can trust. And that's one thing we obviously try to do is put out the best information that we can put out that people can trust and rely on. But when you go out and you find all these things, these videos pop up on your social media feed or something about 6 different nuts you should be eating for your health. Well, that may be great for the person that made the video, or maybe they're sponsored by some nut company or something, and you have to dig into it. But maybe not all of us should be eating those 6 types of nuts. And it really, as I get older, just personally, I realize that some of the advice that's out there is not suitable for me, especially if you're getting it from AI now. You have to really be careful with that. You talk about changes in technology. The next 3 to 5 years with AI, and how people get their information. Even already, if you do a search on just about any search engine, the first thing that pops up is a little window that's thinking, and it gives you all this text, and it looks good, and you start reading it, you're like, wait a minute, and you realize that's an AI generated answer, and then all the other stuff's listed down below where you can go in and then look and find what you believe and what you trust, the different websites. So it's like I actually had a conversation with one of the AI chatbots last night because I wanted a late night snack, and they always say you don't eat after a certain time. And so I was kind of arguing with it about, look, I'm a night person. I'm going to be up until midnight or 1 anyway. If I'm eating at 8 o'clock and then not eating for 12 or 15 hours, is that healthy or whatever? And obviously going, overnight like that. So I said, what is a late night snack I should eat? And it said, oh, you could have peanut butter and apples, which is a great snack. Mm-hmm. But I've noticed that if I eat peanut butter or eat too much peanut butter, allergies act up a little bit. Not that I'm allergic to it, but right? I'm not going to start, having breathing problems or something like that. But personally, I'm a little fuzzy-headed the next day, and my nose is a little sniffly. And I can't attribute it directly to peanut butter, but I've noticed that after that, there may be a correlation. First thing it does, it pops up and says, oh, eat some peanut butter and apples. I said, we already had this conversation about me potentially, and it said, oh, histomologically, blah, 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 and it gives me the technical details,
Yeah.
which was interesting, but there's so much information that we can turn to out there that we need to find those reputable sources and be willing to push back against AI, or if you're seeing something that, people are saying, this is the gospel truth. We don't need to just buy into it wholeheartedly because of who they are. We have to trust them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, obviously a hospital is a trusted resource, or should be. We should be able to trust the medical providers, and we should be able to trust the people that we're seeking the advice from. And I think for me, that's one of the top of the mind awareness things is when we put something out, it has to be credible, it has to be based on fact, it has to be backed by the authority of a provider or our experts in the field. But again, it's up to each of us to make the decision whether that's right for us.
When you were mentioning the food pyramid, I was thinking about my sister-in-law, John, because when we have a big family party, now she does, and she likes to bring the dessert to the party, but she doesn't like chocolate.
Okay.
But everybody else likes chocolate. She does not bring chocolate because she doesn't like it. That's not catering to. It's
Right.
not about you. It's about everybody else, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're kind of saying about that situation? With
Yeah, I think so. It's a matter of when you hear the information that's out there, it may apply to everybody but you need to be aware of that. And I think that's actually where a conversation with your doctor, your family medicine provider, your primary care. A lot of people, and it's not wrong to do this, that they rely on express care, or they rely on an urgent care, or they rely on the emergency department for treating medical problems. And in an emergency situation, obviously that's good. If you don't have a family medicine provider, then going to an express care and urgent care is good because that service is available. But you need somebody that's in your corner to help you sort of figure out how your body is reacting to what it's going through. So I grew up in a family that the only time you went to the doctor was when you were really sick.
Yes.
Not just barely sick, but
Right.
really sick. And
Right.
I remember having conversations with my mom when I was a kid. She's like, well, okay, let's try try the aspirin, or try, if I had a tummy ache. I grew up in the South, so if you had a tummy ache, and I really wanted to prove you had a tummy ache, you'd rub turpentine on the belly button or whatever.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, it's the old school remedies for things. Amazingly enough, it worked. But
that's all that matters,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So I think it was more psychological than anything for me. But at that time, we just didn't go to the doctor.
Right, right.
I remember as a kid, I had to go once or
That's
twice
so
a
true.
year. But we just didn't go. And as I've gotten older, I've realized I need that extra motivation of somebody knowing that I'm going to go talk to somebody else about what's going on with me. So obviously I'm overweight. I need to lose weight. Had conversations with a couple of different primary care providers about it. And it's knowing that I have an appointment coming up with my primary care in a couple of months. I'm already starting to think, okay, yeah, I know I need to lose weight. Now I really need to get a little more motivated to do it. Or I'm going to need their help to find that motivation. So I can go in and I can say, look, these are the numbers, the lab test shows, these are my numbers. These concern me, should I be worried about anything else? And obviously talking with medical people as often as I get a chance to, following those numbers it sort of makes sense to me, how things are changing as I get older. But hearing that from a doctor or primary care nurse practitioner is reassuring that either I'm thinking correctly or I need to adjust how I think about those numbers, because they can change suddenly, and it could be a moment of panic, or it could be a moment of, okay, we're going to watch that for 6 months or a year. And if you because I always told people I've always had good blood pressure. Never worried about my blood pressure when I was younger. The last time I had my blood pressure checked, it was just a little high for my range, what I consider my healthy range. And the person that took it said, I wouldn't worry about that. That's just, you're in a stress, you're just kind of nervous about being here or whatever. I'm like, no, it's not been that high. And it wasn't high, it was just elevated slightly. But I haven't experienced that. Always within a certain range. And so the next time I talk to him, I'm going to say, hey, should I be worried about this? Do we need to start looking toward other things? And he's going to tell me, lose weight, get more sleep, exercise more. That's your first line of defense. And how many of us actually do all of those?
Yeah, probably a very, very microscopic percentage.
Right. No, you're right. And so I think anytime we can, getting back to the question about Allison and the events with Dinner with ARMC, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to not only have a nice meal, but hear from a provider and then be able to ask questions of them at the event.
That's what I was going to ask you next. That would be probably the most important thing for me if I was to go to one of those. And those are held how often?
Once a month.
And they move around?
Yeah, they move to various long-term care facilities, or they'll be at ARMC. But basically once a month, and we always post the information on Facebook. We'll take the information down once the event fills up, because there are a limited number of registrations. Even though it's free, we still ask you to register so we know you'll be there. But we take it down off of Facebook and social media so people don't think they can still call. So yeah, if you're ever looking for something, you're like, well, I know John said that's coming up, but it's not out there. Well, it's because it filled up.
Yeah.
And or we have a waiting list already that
they're very popular.
They are. We average about, I want to say we average about 50 people, and that can vary based on the room size. But the fact that they are around the county, so we'll do Saybrook, Ashtabula, the county nursing home, and every once in a while we'll scatter in a few other places around. It's been to Jefferson. I want to say there's been one down in Orwell.
Moving it around works well, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, you especially when you get into fall, and the nights starts getting dark earlier. Obviously a lot of people don't like driving at night. And so if you have an event, I know, I'm getting to that age where I hate driving at night.
Especially if it's raining.
Yes.
That glare on the pavement.
Yeah. That and the LED headlights.
Yeah.
Bothers
they
me
are
worse than
bright.
anything. Headlights have always bothered me, but the LED lights especially now. But yeah, if you have an event at 5:30 and it gets dark at 6:30, you're not getting home until 7 maybe. So driving that shorter distance because it's local to your community is a much better option. But yeah, we talk about this all the time with the providers, the access to them there. I mean, you don't have to wait for your next appointment to ask some questions. Now, obviously, they're not going to get into diagnosing you right there, so we don't encourage people to show up and go through their whole medical history with them. But you have an opportunity, if the provider's there, say, hey, this has been bothering me. Is that an issue? Related to the topic they're on.
If somebody in the crowd at this dinner with AMRMC didn't want to ask their question in public, are they able to ask the doctor in private?
There are some of the doctors have availability after the event to stick around and talk to people, and we've had people stay a little bit later as we're cleaning up. The doctor's going around talking to people and things. Other times the provider may be on call. The one we just did last month, they were on call, finished what they needed to talk about, answered the questions there, and it said, okay, I gotta go. And so they were able to, they had to leave quickly, unfortunately, but generally a lot of times they will stick around and answer questions, or you can always submit the question to us and we can turn it into the provider later. We've done that as well. So we try not to get into the personal side of the discussion, but if there's a question somebody thinks about after the provider's done, then yeah, we'll be glad to pass it along, and then they can get back with them.
Now, who was on the show yesterday? What's her first name? Lisa?
Tina.
She was saying that in May, that's one of the dates you may be talking about. There's two big events back-to-back days.
Yes.
What was the other one?
So the dinner was the 21st, is the 21st, and we still have availability so people can call. It's 997-6555 is the phone number for that. 997
To make a reservation?
To make a reservation.
Can they do it online as well?
No, it's just by phone.
Just by phone.
And
What's that number again, John?
997
997
6555.
6555, and of course that's 440.
Yes. And we chose not to do the online reservations because again, we want to be able to talk to the people and let them know any other information. And every once in a while, we were finding out that someone would register online. There would be a glitch somewhere in the system, either on their end or perhaps on our end, and we wouldn't get the reservation, so they show up, expecting to have a meal, and we're scrambling to find something at the last minute. Talking to them directly, we get a better sense of, them coming. But if they want to bring anyone else with them, we can register everything right there. Mm-hmm. And then we have that contact information that we can call them. Unfortunately, we've had to do this a couple of times where the provider had to cancel, not at the last minute, but relatively within a couple of days of the event. So we've been able to call everybody back. But if you just have that online connection,
right,
you may not know that they get it.
Right.
So,
is this just an adult audience?
We have had some teenagers in there, young adults. We prefer it to be adult over certain, older
like some
teenagers.
high school kids.
Yeah, older teenagers would be good as well. But generally, the discussion is for adults, and primarily the guests at these dinners are senior citizens. And that's most of the topics are geared for the issues in their lives, and I should say my life because I'm getting to be there. So,
do you ever repeat a health topic?
We will.
In
we
case
may have
somebody couldn't make the
we
first
may
one.
have a different provider speak, but we have done that in the past. Mm-hmm. Or if we see that there's just an incredible demand for this, we may have that same speaker do something later in the year at a different location. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the second event that you had mentioned is Friday, May 22nd.
The very next day.
The very next day. And it is a community connection fair. And this will be our sixth one that we've done. Basically, we invite...
Annually?
Annually, mm-hmm. Yes. We will invite several of the community organizations to join us at ARMC Health and Wellness Plaza, which is across the street and down the street a little bit from the hospital. And we set up under the walkway in front of the building, so it's covered, but we're still outdoors. And we just have people come by, and they're able to ask questions of the various vendors that are there, the spokespeople for the various groups. We have some screenings that will be available.
That's
so
very interesting.
We do blood pressure and we do blood sugar. So they'll do the little finger stick and they'll put it in the machine right there. And it's not a big technical machine. It's just a little blood test, mm-hmm. and give you what your blood sugar is at the moment.
What a good deal that is.
So, and we have some other people that set up that do the one that I always like doing, and I always feel bad when I do it. And I think I'm going to change my life because of this, is the grip strength. And I can't guarantee we'll have that this year, but we've generally almost always had something with grip strength, and that's where you just squeeze a thing as hard as you can. And I have noticed as I've gotten older, either because of strain or I don't want to say arthritis. Yeah, it hasn't been diagnosed yet.
I can speak for arthritis.
But I'm right-handed, but my left hand is stronger than my right hand right now. And every time I do it,
you said you're
I'm
right-handed.
Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, are there exercises I can do? What do I need to be doing? So I bought one of those little
rubber
squishy balls,
yeah.
And I've got a couple of different things. Remember back in the day, you had those big hand grip things.
Yes.
And you'd see it in the back of the comic book. You can don't be a wimp. Buy this. So you got the springy thing, and then you had the hand grips, and that was going to change how people saw you. But they are good for strengthening your hands.
People with carpal tunnel use those a lot too.
Yeah. So,
John, what time is this event on the 22nd?
So
what are the hours?
That is going to be noon to 3, And we will have a food truck set up. I think they're doing hot dogs or something. I don't remember the exact. I just heard food truck yesterday. So
And this is where?
that's at the ARMC Health and Wellness Plaza on Lake Avenue.
Oh, right across the street.
Yeah, so just down the
Yeah.
street and across
Okay, the plaza.
from us. But we're already putting information out on Facebook. So any of our ARMC Healthcare System page, our Ashtabula Regional Medical Center page, Conneaut Family Health Center page, and we're also on X and LinkedIn and Instagram. So all of that will be posted. And as we add vendors to that or community agencies to that, they will be there. They'll be listed as well. So it's. I don't think about a lot of this stuff in terms of this, but the knowledge that is available in our community, not just for healthcare, but for helping us kind of take away some of that fear or anxiety that we have about things going on in our lives. So, if we're feeling a financial strain or we're feeling some mental health strain, that's going to affect our health. If you're worried about something, you're not going to be sleeping as well. So being able to connect to some of these community organizations that I may not go to their office and talk to a lot of people or sign up for a bunch of stuff, but if there's an event, I can go say, hey, this has been bothering me. Should I worry about this? Should I, I could really use some help figuring out how to do a budget. There'll be people on hand that can help with that kind of thing, or guide us to who could help us.
Mm-hmm. Now, was your department involved at all with the RAM clinic that we just had recently?
Tina was.
Yeah.
And Allison was there too. I was the only one that wasn't there. Mm-hmm. So
that's a great thing we have too, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been out to that once or twice where I actually stayed and helped. Otherwise, other people have been taking care of that over the years. But you think about helping 400 people that have needed either medical, dental, or vision checks, and to be able to help them get the care that they need.
Is that what they had, 400 people?
Yeah, we had 400 plus people there over the 2 days. It was over $300,000 worth of medical services because they track that.
How does that compare attendance to some of the previous clinics?
It's fairly close to. They stay fairly steady because they invite a number of providers for physicians and nurse practitioners, optometrists, and other folks that are doing eye care, and then you have the dental folks as well. So you have you're limited really by the number of providers and space that you have. When I know talking with JP Ducro and several others, we'd love to say we saw 1,000 people and we gave $1 million worth of care or whatever it is, but you're limited by time, space, and provider availability. So it's, the need may be there, but 400 people in a weekend that didn't have care previously, that's great.
No, it was at the Lakeside High School area?
Junior high school.
High school area, and then prior to that it was at the town square in Ashtabula?
It was at the junior high, previously it was the high school, then it was at the town square mall.
Okay.
So
is this the best location, do you think? Or do you hear anything about the location-wise?
It's funny, being on the periphery of it, I always think, where could you make the event better? And I don't know that you can make the event better because it's centrally located for the northern part of the county.
Yeah.
But so if you moved it, let's say you moved it down to Orwell, then you've got a lot of the people that need the care up in Ashtabula, Conneaut, and Geneva. They're going to have to get down there. All of your volunteers are going to have to get down there. And not that it's that far to drive, but from here, it's 45 minutes, maybe an hour.
Yeah.
So that's pretty.
This is convenient right here at Lakeside, or even at the town square. I mean,
you're on the northern half of the county. You're centrally located. It's convenient for our staff. It's convenient because if they need to get back to the hospital for something, or if there's a medical emergency, you've got a couple of hospitals within the area that are fairly close by. So we're it may be the best location for what's available now in the county.
And this is a 2-day event?
2-day event.
Friday, Saturday, or is it Saturday, Sunday?
Saturday, Sunday.
Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, I think the first one they may have done 3 days. I don't remember, but they found they have a very good working model, and I'm impressed with just the RAM Clinic organization itself, because they go all over the country and they do multiple ones in a weekend. So I don't know the details, but Tina had mentioned that there were several others going on at the same time ours was.
Well, Tina was saying on our morning show yesterday that they love coming to Ashtabula County. It's one of their favorite places in the country.
Yeah, it's. I think they like coming here just for the community and some of the things that we offer, but they know that there's a need here. And I was talking with. We do a cooking show on our YouTube channel. It's called the ARMC Wellness Kitchen. And so we'll have somebody come in, and Jim Colco has been on. Yeah,
he lets us know.
So,
and his wife says he can't cook a thing.
No. Well, we so he a lot of times he and I will cook things together, and I'm just showing him, here, you go cut that up. I'm the one doing the cooking, but we've had some community people on, Peachy Chapman and others, that we talk about the access that people need to medical care and what are the boundaries to that. And it's not a political issue. It's a human need. Mm-hmm. And I a lot of times we get stuck in our own brains, right? So we think this is the way I think, and this is the way it is for everybody,
and this is the way it has to be.
Yeah. I'm learning as I get older. It doesn't have
Jim
to.
Jim and I talk about this just about every morning.
Yeah, but it's a case of. If I need something, I'm going to go do the research. I'm going to go look it up and then figure out, do I really need it, or am I going to, but a lot of people are not they don't think about incremental steps to get where you need to go. Or they may not even think that's available or that they qualify for it.
Or as Jim always used to say, everybody gets an opinion, but mine's the right one. Doesn't that sound like Jim? My buddy Jim.
It does. So, yeah.
So that's great. Continued success with that, by the way. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job.
And it's
anything else you'd like to say about it?
Well, Ram Clinic is such a community thing. It's not just ARMC. It's not just UH. It's the whole community of volunteers that come together for that. And I love how JP puts out on his Facebook page all of the restaurants that donate. Mm-hmm. So if you, and I haven't done it, but it would be an interesting experiment to add up all of the people, all of the community groups that come together at the event, but also all the ones around that provide support for those 2 days. And it would touch hundreds of people that are volunteering or contributing to it.
Sure.
So that those 400 people that are served get what they need.
Sure.
So it's not just here's 7 people over here making this happen. It's hundreds that and we don't do community service to feel good, but man, helping out with something like that, you got to feel good after that. Mm-hmm. And we're proud that it's available in the community. Obviously, ARMC is very proud to be involved. We're one of the ones that helped from the start to get this up and running in the county, and we'll continue to do that.
Plenty more to talk with John Broom here. He's my guest, media relations at ARMC. John, I want to move on to, you spent some time in Germany.
I did.
Was this in your very early years? And tell us, what was the reason for being there?
This was high school age. So my dad,
like an exchange student?
No. My dad my dad worked for the government he was a photographer. Mm-hmm. This kind of plays into my love of technology and cameras and stuff. But he was a photographer with the government, and we moved around the country a little bit after I was when I turned 10. Mom and Dad said, "Okay, it's old enough now. It's okay if we move somewhere else." So we started moving to different locations, and we were living out in Utah at the time, and not terribly happy out there. It's not a bad part of the country, but we just weren't, things weren't.
So you've been around, been in the South, now Utah, Germany.
Yep. So he applied and got the job over in Germany, and by the time he left there, I think it was 8 years later. he was in charge of the photo labs at the military bases around Europe. So we traveled to different countries and did things. He would go work and we just tag along. But I lived over there I was there for 7 years and then came back to college, finish up college here.
Did you enjoy it there?
The first year was a big learning curve. And then the fact that, we didn't have American television for, a young kid growing up in the mid 80s, TV was, it was kind of important. And it was a connection back to America, but we only had one channel, which was the Armed Forces Radio Network, radio and TV network. But I got used to it, and then moving back here was a culture shock for me after being over there for 7 years.
Oh, really?
So, and I didn't expect that.
Well,
so
yeah,
it was
you said you were a teenager when you were there.
Yeah. So moved there when I was 14. Moved back here when I was 21.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So when you were over in Germany, was it difficult, of course, to understand what people were saying those first couple years?
It was. I was taking German classes in high school, so it got better, and we learned to communicate when we needed to, and I had an interesting conversation one time. I say conversation. I was waiting for the subways over there are called U-Bahns. And so I'm waiting for it goes to the end of the line, and then it turns around and comes back. Well, I ended up going to the end of the line for whatever reason, and the driver had to wait a certain amount of time before he could go back. And he was sitting on the bench waiting, and I'm sitting on the bench waiting. And I needed to ask him something about the train, and I asked him something, and he didn't speak English. And so I tried in German, and he didn't speak German either. He was Italian.
Oh my goodness!
So now he's in.
I should have been there with you.
I speak like no Italian. I had been to Italy a couple of times, but I knew a couple of numbers, and Italian friend of mine taught me a couple of dirty words, which
those are the first ones people seem
yeah,
to know.
I didn't need to know that, but he thought it was funny. But anyway, we're trying to have a conversation, and we were able to have a conversation by referencing things that we could see, or I don't know how it came about, but we were able to communicate and I still remember it was a fun attempt at a conversation, and he showed me a picture of his family, and I'm telling him about my mom and dad, and I don't know, it's one of those moments. It's like just surreal, but you're talking, you're communicating with somebody without actually having a lot of words in whatever language.
Not to give your age away, but that was years ago. Can you speak anything in German today?
I have forgotten a lot of it, but the kids that I work with at the youth group at Bethel Bible Church, they know that I lived over there, so they're always trying to get me to speak German, and every once in a while I'll just start off on a whole paragraph of just German, and they're just looking at me like, what? I'm like, all right, you wanted it, you wanted it, here's what you're gonna get. But
what an experience, though.
I guess I need to qualify it. It was West Germany, because back then we still had the Iron Curtain, and so we were in West Germany, and we didn't get you. Now you travel over there, and I would love to go back and see how things have changed in 30 years, but go to some of those places that I had not been able to get to. But yeah, we were worried. I remember the military obviously having drills, but there were times it was like, okay, President Reagan has done this, and everybody's drawing their lines in the sand. You think about, what are you going to do if you're at school and suddenly the Russian planes are flying over? Because they were 18 minutes away by plane. The Russian tanks were an hour away, and as a kid, you don't really think about that, but you kind of grow up really quick when you think, oh, this could be serious.
Really?
So yeah, and I tell the kids at the youth group, I say, you have to be prepared for things to happen, and I think the reason a lot of us get caught in situations is, what is it? Situational awareness. You need to know what's going on. You need to know where the exit door is, or the fire door,
exactly,
or something like that. And so I tell them, be aware of what's going on, If you're walking along and there's 3 people over there and 2 people over there and somebody's behind you, should you be worried? Or is it just everybody's doing their own thing? But I always tell the kids, when I lived over there, I always made sure I had Hershey chocolate bars and a roll of toilet paper in my backpack at school. And they're like, "Why'd you have that, Mr. Broom?" And I said, "Well, one, because I grew up watching war movies, and you can always exchange Hershey chocolate bars for whatever you need in the war movies, and then obviously the toilet paper.
Yeah.
In case you're out in the woods, you don't have to use
Toilet paper goes hand in hand with the Hershey bars.
Yes. Hopefully not too quickly. Yeah.
So, do you remember one more thing on Germany now? The weather. What was the weather similar to here or different?
It is. I think it is actually a little north of here, where latitude wise.
Mm-hmm.
But very similar. I mean, we had hot summers, we had cold winters. We didn't get nearly as much. Well, we got snow. I want to say we didn't get nearly as much, but for the last couple of years, other than the big one. It seemed like we haven't gotten as much snow as we used to.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we get a few inches at a time scattered out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, otherwise the weather was good. We didn't have air conditioning at the places we lived, so that did make it a little difficult in the summers occasionally. But the buildings over there were built for more airflow, and kind of like our older buildings here, they breathe a little bit. So. It's nice. It was good, generally good weather.
John Broom, you're very interesting. You are very interesting, and now I want to go on to another one. You're a historian.
Yes.
Always been a historian, even back in the school days.
Yeah, I loved reading and I loved history, and so for me that was always I kind of perked up during those classes, and I was never good at math, and I just
joined the club.
Well, I've got a cousin that just, he was a math teacher, and he just loved math. And I was talking to him one day, and I'm like, I have a mental block. I can feel it if I start mathing too hard. I can feel this little spot in my brain like pressure on it. He goes, "Oh, that's interesting," and. But he was so good at math. I was never good at math. So history, reading, writing, that was kind of always my thing.
What part of history do you enjoy the most?
It does kind of vary, but generally European history. My bachelor's degree is in journalism and in history. It's a double major, because I started down the history path while I was still living over in Germany. So I was studying that roughly 1870 to 1950 in that era. So you've got World War I, World War II, all of that. I grew up watching war movies, as a kid. I loved those old black and white, the whole John Wayne and all these guys doing war movies. And now you watch them and it's like, wow, I didn't realize, not quite as good as I remember, but man, some of those are good.
So European history, you have interest in local history or American history?
I do. As a matter of fact, I just joined, late last year I joined the Jefferson Historical Society. And we're getting ready for the 250th anniversary. I should be more excited about that than I am.
Around
I think
the 4th.
Around the 4th. But our contribution to the event is we're focused on the 8 United States presidents from Ohio, and we're also adding something in. One of the presidents from the prior to the U.S. being under its Constitution. It had its Articles of Confederation. And we had, for the longest time here in the county, we had the museum, the True Presidential Museum, that was down in Harts Grove. I don't know if you ever knew about that, but it focused on the first presidents that were under the Articles of Confederation. And unfortunately, the gentleman that had it died a few years ago. But I always remembered that as being kind of an interesting thing about history is. So I looked up, obviously none of them could have been from Ohio because Ohio didn't exist back then. But one man, his name is St. Clair. He was president of the Congress for a little over a year, and he ended up living in southern Ohio and in around the Cincinnati area. So you've got what, St. Clairsville, I think, is down that way, and maybe some other names related to him. He actually had an idea for a different form of government than what the Western Reserve had. So when Ohio was being formed, there was a little bit of a not conflict, but which form of government do we want to follow in Ohio? And I haven't researched it enough. I just found out about this kind of debate that was going on. He had one method, and Western Reserve and the way it spread across into Ohio was slightly different. So I'm looking forward to researching that part of it.
Sure. You know this guy, I'm pretty sure, Steve Lux.
Steve, yes, yes.
I think his mother was a teacher.
Yes.
Was she a teacher?
Well,
of
no,
history?
she's a nurse.
A nurse.
And
that's right, she's
yeah,
a nurse.
yeah.
Was somebody in that family?
Somebody
a
else in the
teacher?
family. Yeah, I don't
His
know
sister,
everybody, but
maybe?
yeah, they're educators
I
in the
think
family. So.
he was, when I had him on the show, I think either he's a historian or somebody in that family
Yeah,
was a historian. Nice guy.
absolutely, absolutely. We don't get to interact enough, but I think I'd enjoy hanging out with him. You know, just as a friend. But there's just so much history here. I remember you have not only the expansion into Ohio and how Ashtabula County was formed, but you've got all the Native American history that's here that predates that, and it's just fascinating to see. And I think it's I know a lot of people get bored with history, but I think it's the personalities that I'm interested in. I love the facts, I love the details and everything, but I mean, think about what it would be like for us to, what do people say about us 100, 200 years from now, about the way we lived our lives here in Ohio? In our little corner of Ohio, what are the big things we're facing? What are the challenges that we have? And how will history look at what we did to overcome it? And I think that we probably all need to do a better job of remembering the heroes that we had. It's funny, somebody posted the other day about some of the top movies that kids should watch that promote American history, and one of them was Johnny Tremaine. And I don't know if you remember the Disney movie that came out. It was back in the late 60s, early 70s, Johnny Tremaine. It was based on a book. It's about a kid he's a silversmith, or an apprentice for a silversmith, and he ends up hurting his hand, and he's not able to do
I don't recall this one at all.
Oh, it's a great movie.
Do you, Bob?
I don't remember the details of the movie, but I remember as a kid watching that.
And I'm older than you.
So that may be the thing. It was
I don't recall
it was
it.
geared for my age group at the time. But watching it, I was just like amazed because it was about American Revolutionary history, and so a couple of people were like, "There's a book about that." I'm like, "Ooh, I want to go read the book." And the book to me is not as interesting because it gets into a lot more of the character development. And he's initially in the book, he's not a person you want to emulate. He's very selfish. He's very prideful.
Oh, yeah.
He's very. I'm thinking the more I read this book, which was written decades ago, that's more like how we are today. So
True.
I'm like, this
True.
actually is a political or a commentary, cultural commentary about our day and time. But I love learning about the people and what they went through and the choices that they make, and why. And sometimes I just get on a kick about, I don't know about this topic, and I'll go get 3 or 4 books. Or I'm more of a book person. I'm not as much watch videos and learn.
You like
I
the
will,
reading.
but yeah, because you can, and I still take notes by hand.
Read at your own pace.
Yeah, read at your own pace, study it, put it down for a while. If I'm watching a movie, I'm like, I'll watch the next part and remember this section, and I don't.
I got a couple more things that John has done that I want to talk about too. But John, I know you're a man of faith.
Mm-hmm.
How does faith play a role in everything that you do? How does your faith play a role in everything you do?
I think that the worldview that we have does play more of a role in our lives than I think most of us like to think about or really focus on, and how we filter things that we see. So always in my career, and this is probably as much faith as it is the teachers that I had growing up, and they had faith as well in various things, not just Christianity, but different spiritual things as well. But that emphasis on you're serving something greater than yourself, and I've always looked up to that as a good ideal. I mean, what I do, I'm not just bringing glory to myself. I should be striving to bring honor and glory to the place that I work. So at ARNC, or the church that I go to, so Bethel Bible Church, to my family, and not only my wife, but my mom and dad, and mom's not with us anymore, but dad, and the history of the family and everything.
So you were born and raised with faith. It's not something that developed as time went along.
No, it's funny. I grew into it. I like to say, because I don't have that one exact moment. I do have an exact moment, but I couldn't point to a point in time where I could say that's where I completely understood what this whole thing is about. But I grew up, as we've talked about, I grew up in the South, and we had adult church and children's church, and it was Baptist church, Southern Baptist church, and the pastor that was the children's pastor. He was a fire and brimstone pastor. I mean, you don't think about that as being good for kids to hear, but I remember he would tell us at some point during his message, if you don't have Jesus, you'll die and go to hell. And this is what hell is like. And he described it to us, and a couple of times we'd leave there crying because we didn't want that. And one night, and I was 6 years old, I'm laying in bed Sunday night, still scared because of what I'd heard that morning. And I remembered that mom or dad or somebody had said, when you're scared, when you're worried, pray to God about it and tell him what's bothering you. And I said, God, I don't understand how Jesus can save me from that, but I know Jesus can. Help me to understand this, and I don't want to go to hell. And I stopped being worried about it right then. I wasn't worried anymore. And the next Sunday, he started telling us this stuff again, and I wasn't worried about it. And I was like, that's not my future. And the little kid that was sitting next to me was crying, and I said, just give it to Jesus. And I didn't know what any of that meant. I didn't understand exactly what all that meant. But as I grew older, I came to understand that the sacrifice that Christ made on the cross for us, we're all, at some point in our lives, we've all disobeyed what God said. And there's arguments about, can you trust the Bible? I think they're deflections, because we don't want to address the fact that we don't live our lives the best way we could. The Bible tells us we should honor God, love man, give God the glory, and live well with our fellow man. Mm-hmm. And do we do either of those well? Mm-hmm. Even people that have no faith at all can agree we don't live our lives well with each other. Said. And if I'm trying to live my life to the best of my ability, the way I understand it, I may meet that goal, but that's not helping society, or that's not meeting society's goals for things. I need something outside of myself to tell me what the best standard is to live. And that's why I trust the Bible for being a source of its truth, and that I can rely on. And the fact that Christ took the punishment that was meant for me on that cross. It's humbling to think about that the sins that I have committed, the disobedience that I have, things I have done that disobeying God, that he took that punishment that I never even think about. Especially since we just finished Easter, it makes a big difference mentally and
sure does.
But yeah, you talk about how your faith guides things. Just being honest with everybody, that's a key point, and not just because the Bible says don't lie. I mean, obviously, right. but think of the lies that we tell from just outright telling a lie versus leaving information out or whatever. I mean, how does that damage our relationship with each other? And when I was a kid, I used to think, religion is more about the relationship with God. But as I get older, I realize it truly is more about how we relate with each other.
I think I feel pretty confident in saying that no matter what faith you are, the congregation is more elderly than youthful. Now, you're very involved at Bethel Bible Church
Yes.
with the youth group. How do you share your faith with the youth?
We will several times a year we'll have folks come in and give their testimonies, because I want the kids to hear from other people other than me,
That's
or
good. I
other
like
than a couple
that.
of the other volunteers. And sometimes that goes well, sometimes it doesn't, because kids can be, depending on what kind of mood the kids are in.
What age group are we talking here?
We're
for
talking
these?
roughly 7th grade to seniors in high
Outside
school.
middle
So-
to high schoolers,
Yeah.
okay.
And we've got some 6th graders that will be there. If we leave that choice up to the parents. If they're spiritually mature enough and they want to come in, and that's up to the parents. And some of the kids will stick around after they graduate, because they'll be helping us do things. But we have a couple that come back. And
So you do
yeah,
Bible with them and then
Yeah.
some activities?
yeah, well, you have to vary it a good bit, But I remember somebody telling me, kids don't have an attention span longer than 15 minutes, and I haven't found that to be true. I think that if they are engaged in the topic, they will listen for as long as they need
Yeah.
to. Now, there's some rabbit trails we go down, and you got to steer them back in, and sometimes it's like herding cats. But yeah, we have good conversation. We were just talking Wednesday night about Jesus and Lazarus, from the book of Gospel of John, because the previous week we had talked about Jesus turning water into wine, and I said that was his first miracle, public miracle that he did when he changed the water to wine. Well, raising Lazarus was his last public miracle. So we kind of bookended the whole thing there. And the kids we were having a good conversation about, they like the King James version, where it says, where he says we're going to roll the stone back, and Mary says don't do that because he stinketh. They just like the word, but there's so much that shows the authority that Jesus had as God. It shows his compassion for everybody that was there, and it shows his humanity. I mean, shortest verse in the Bible, Jesus wept. And so when people tell me I can't memorize the Bible, I'm like, you just got 2 words on that one. John 11:35,
Yeah,
Jesus
there you
wept.
go.
There you go.
There
You've
you go.
learned a memory verse.
Yeah.
But you study the context of it. Why was he crying? What was he crying about? How was he personally affected? But there's a spiritual hunger, and I'll kind of put my public cap back on. There's a spiritual hunger, I think, that this younger generation has. And I don't know where it starts. I haven't figured out that oldest age range. So you go from Gen X to whatever the next generation is, and the younger kids that are coming up. But I do get a sense from what I see in the news and what I read about online, and just talking to people, there's a spiritual hunger there that they may not understand what they're looking for, but people know that they need something that society is not providing them.
And they seem intrigued.
Yes, yeah. And so whether they're
That's
turning
the number
to,
one thing.
Yeah.
They're intrigued.
Yeah, and they want depth to it. They want the information, but they want to know it's more than just, hey, if you try these 3 things, your life will be better.
Yeah, they want to know why.
They
it's
want to
gonna
know
be
the
better.
why. They want
Yeah.
it to be deep. So whether they're turning to New Age stuff, they're turning to some of the Middle Eastern religions, they're turning to Judaism, they're turning to Roman Catholic, whatever it is, they are looking for something that can ground them into a sense of truth. Because let's be honest, I mean, there's what we hear today from society is don't worry about it. Don't worry about, you're looking for information, don't worry about it. It'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want to know it'll be okay. We want to know why it'll be
Yes.
okay.
Yes. John, you're also the tech guy out at your church,
Yes.
according to Mr. Coco. And he says, anytime we have technical issues, we say, where's John Broom?
Yeah. Well, not because I cause them, but yeah. Yeah.
So what's that all involve?
Right now we're doing. I'm doing the sound for our services and any special events that we have. And I'm doing we're doing streaming on YouTube for the church. And so we make sure the cameras are set up, make sure everything's connected.
That's every Sunday that you do that.
That's every Sunday. So it's
did that start during the COVID years, or did you guys even do it prior to that?
We had started before, but yeah, during COVID, obviously a lot of churches not able to meet. Some of them following what the state had said, others saying we have an older population, we're just not going to put them at risk. And so a lot of people did go to online, and we saw the numbers bounce back slowly as far as in-person attendance, but we kept that up. Actually, we kept it up live because we do have a handful of people that just didn't come back, and mostly because of their own health problems, not because they were worried about things. But I know when I travel, I love the fact that I can tune into my church service online, either live or catch up with it later. And I've got family members that are pastors at other churches around the country, and I love listening to them sometime during the week. And so the availability of all of this. So I know that if I lived in a part of the world or a part of the country where I couldn't find I don't want to say denomination, but I couldn't find the church that kind of matches what I believe the Bible teaches, it's out there to find. And so when people say, well, I just can't find a church that's right for me,
they're not looking hard enough.
Well, I don't want to say that, but keep looking. I mean, it's easy to give up. And I know when we first moved up here, I visited several. I came up about 6 months before my wife moved up. I moved up here back in 2001, and I spent most of that 6 months visiting different churches, trying to find something that I knew she would like and that I would like and feel comfortable in, and really where God is leading us to be. Because just because you find a church that it may make you feel good, it may be what you like hearing, but is it a place that you can serve and be involved? Again, it's service greater than me.
Sure. And
being able to help out, whether it's through sound or whatever it is, I'm an introvert, and there's a lot of times I get kind of stuck in. I just want to be by myself. Leave me alone. Even my wife knows. There's times just leave John alone
because he's be like in an isolated spot.
Yeah, but that's how I know that there is this calling from God to serve other people, because I enjoy that. I enjoy that service. Getting back to the hospital, I enjoy what I do because it is helping other people.
It shows you enjoy everything that we've talked about, that you enjoy what you're doing. Now, my favorite, 97.1 talk show host. Was that with Mark Allen?
No, well, chance? I was on...
My buddy Mark?
I was on once a week with Mark.
Oh, once a week?
Yeah, I was
on Disco Fridays?
Yeah, Disco Fridays. And it's because he and I argued over what was disco music and what wasn't, or what we liked about disco or hated about disco music. I kept pushing him to play more disco music, and he didn't want to have anything to do with it. So no, we got in some interesting musical discussions. But
what years are we talking?
This would have been 2005, I think, back in that day. I was only on for a couple of years, but I still have people that say,
early in the morning, right?
Yeah, I was on from 6 to 9. I jokingly say that I led into Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh. So
was the call-in show?
Yeah, it was call-in show. The tagline, I think, for the show, we eventually got to Broom and Beck in the morning, Rush and Hannity in the afternoon, or something like that. So I started it off, but I enjoyed it. I enjoy the. I guess. Well, I had a 7-second delay, which helped some days, because people are very passionate about their opinions on things, and there was a lot going on in the community that we had conversation about, and sometimes I'll be sitting in my office reading the paper, either the Star Beacon or the Gazette, and I'm like, I would still like to be on radio to talk about this and get people's opinions.
I can see you being an excellent talk show host.
So, well, thank you. Did
you ever find you may have an idea of what you think about something, and then you have a caller, and it makes you think a little bit differently.
Yes.
Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, many times, because again, like I said, sometimes we get stuck in our own heads about the way things ought to be.
Right.
And every once in a while, I'd have somebody call in and say, John, that's great, but if you thought about it from this angle, and it's like a 90-degree veer from what I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, because I've done that too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's as much as I dislike all of the opinions that are out on social media, and everybody's free to put whatever they want out, and a lot of times I think people rush their opinion without really giving some thought to it, but and it's hurtful, or it has the potential to be hurtful, intentional or not. I do like seeing other people's opinions on things, because it does force us to not only think about what we think about a subject, but how do you defend what you believe? And it's one thing to know what you believe, it's another thing to be able to defend it in a discussion. And so when I was on radio, I would be in those situations where somebody's like, John, have you ever thought about this? And I knew immediately if I agreed with it or not, and I had to be ready to defend that. But a lot of times, like you say, you get a phone call, all of a sudden it's like, wow, I had not thought about that from that person's viewpoint.
Yeah.
And for me, it was usually an older person that was retired, and I don't know if it's because they had lived through experiences that helped with that topic, or they had more time to think about it. I suspect it's the experience.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever had to hang up on a caller?
Oh yeah, lots of times we did that. Again, most of it was language issues. That was a definite, you got immediately hung up on. And we had the 7-second delay, which was very helpful for that, because I just had to keep in mind what I'd previously said, and
Right.
you know, and a couple of times I'd listen to because we didn't record all of them, but I would record some, and I would listen back, and I'm like, okay, that was a sudden transition, but it had to be made because somebody suddenly, said, so and so is a blankety blank, and it's like, oh, well, you can't say that. Bye.
Would you say a lot of the callers would want to talk politics more than anything else, or was there other topics out there that were even stronger than that?
Generally, the show was geared toward the politics of the day. So whatever was going on, and being near Ashtabula, obviously, Ashtabula politics, Geneva politics, Conneaut politics to some degree. We did get into a lot of political discussion. The other thing, obviously, that people are very passionate about here are sports. And I enjoyed talking more about the local high school stuff than kind of what's going on in Cleveland. I grew up a baseball fan, went to a lot of minor league baseball games and stuff, and so I didn't get into a lot of the other basketball or to some degree football, because we just didn't grow up around, we didn't have a football team, NFL team in our area. We didn't have an NBA team in our area, and I wasn't good at those. Baseball I could at least kind of seem like I was good at, and I enjoyed playing baseball. So, I grew up liking baseball. So being able to talk about the Indians at the time, that was, if they were having a good year, we talked about it. If they were having a bad year, we talked about it occasionally. And then the show eventually transitioned into an all sports show.
Yes.
Which was hard for me because, again, I like the local conversation.
Wait, you mean 97.1?
Yeah.
Oh, because I think
Yeah.
it's
Well, it was
WFUN
it was WFUN AM 970.
Oh, okay.
So I wasn't actually on 97.1 except with Mark occasionally.
Oh, I see.
So AM 970. But it transitioned when they went full ESPN on all of their feeds. We transitioned that morning show to a local sports talk show, and the problem that I had
Was that when Rob Rich was there?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. About the same time, yeah. The problem that we ran into was I had a lot of local guests, like you do, like Jim does, that comes on the show and talks. That all went away because most of the sports people that I needed to talk to were the coaches. And they all had study hall or planning periods or something that they were teaching, and they couldn't take time out to be on the radio. So it was, as someone that loved to talk local and get the local opinion, it was hard to do that. And so I remember we had somebody from the Cleveland Monsters, the hockey team, call in one day, and we talked hockey for 30 minutes. And it was great, and I enjoyed it because it was something that a little different, But most of it was, hey, the Cavs are doing this, and it became a lot of more. I think it was less discussion about expert opinion or details about whatever's going on, and more, hey, this is what I think, from the callers. And that's great, but you have that the whole rest of the day on the national shows. Mm-hmm. And we tried to make it that local conversation, but I know I think for a variety of reasons, it didn't quite resonate at the time. People still, if you're driving into work, you want to listen to sports talk that early, you may still be frustrated about the game the night before.
Oh yeah, that happens quite a bit.
Yeah, you may not want to talk about the game or listen to people break down the game that you just hated or something.
That happens quite a bit, John.
I got a few of those calls. It's like, did you even see the game last night? And again, being a morning show that early, it was hard to stay up and watch some of those games. And then be able to get up and talk about them the next morning. So,
do you miss it?
There are times I do. Yeah, I enjoy I've always enjoyed the talk show format, to the point that, again, it's getting different people's opinions about one central topic. And it doesn't have to be anything big or major. I mean, I'll tell you what I would love to have been on the air for is all the Bigfoot sightings over, toward the middle part of the state.
Yeah.
I would have had so much fun with it. I grew up listening to Art Bell. Mm-hmm. So, talking about Chupacabra and Bigfoot and all this other stuff, aliens and all this stuff, it's fun. How much truth I put into it. But if you think about it, all the Bigfoot sightings were right before the meteor came across. I'm like, what did they know that we didn't know?
Yeah, makes you wonder, huh?
Yeah, and then we can laugh about it.
If they were to call you up tomorrow, John, and say, "Can you just do the talk show one time?"
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Let's say
tomorrow.
Like fill in for somebody.
Could you walk right into that, or would you get a little nervous since you've been away from it for a while?
I'd get nervous about it. Yeah.
You would get nervous about it.
I would. But then
would you do a little quick prep?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Oh yeah, yeah. Like, is the paper out? What can I talk about from the paper? What's been on what's been on Jim's show? What have you been talking about? Let me go find some videos. No, there's always work that you would need to do to be ready, because obviously the worst thing you can do is go, I don't have anything to talk about, and then just sit there.
They had some great people over there at the station.
So,
Rob Rich was a great guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Was Gary Kuhn there at the
Gary
time
Kuhn
too?
was there at the time. Yeah, Jeremy
James.
Yep. Yeah, we had Sconey was there. I don't know if you remember Sconey.
Yes.
So
and the lady, Kathy Davis.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we had a good working relationship. We had fun a lot of times. We we did get serious when we needed to, and I remember one of the most we did a 9/11 anniversary that I think the radio stations. It was it was a needed memory from a few years earlier, and we were able to talk to some of the firefighters that went to New York. We were able to talk to people that had direct connections to that, or Pennsylvania even.
My son started his radio career there.
Oh, okay.
He opened up the new. He was one of the first DJs on the Bull.
Oh,
98.3.
Yep.
He went by the name Paul West.
Okay.
If that rings a bell.
Paul rings a bell. I don't remember West. But yeah, Paul rings a bell. That was a good studio. Yeah, I was kind of envious of that studio.
Last thing I have for you today, John, is the Gazette News.
Yes.
We call it the Courier here in Conneaut, but
Yes.
it's the Gazette News.
Mm-hmm.
Once a week paper. I love it. I enjoy it a lot. Were you the editor or were you a writer?
No, I was one of the. Well, I did a little bit of everything there.
Oh, tell us what your job titles are.
When I first moved up here, I started working with Gazette. I'd been working for newspapers for, let's see, at that point it would have been almost 15 years. So I came in as a news editor, and I was technically I was over the Gazette, the Courier, the News, which was in the southern part of the county, Orwell and Andover, area, and they had their own editors, but they answered to me. Sometimes we didn't make a distinction on that, but I did a lot of the writing and the opinion columns, and then I helped oversee the layout.
And what were the years you were there?
That would have been 2001 to 2005, and then I came back, I think 2007 maybe, or 8 to 2010.
So was our Martha Sorensen there at all?
Yeah.
Sorensen, or
Sorahan.
Sorahan.
Yeah. So yeah, and we all ended up in the same office at one point. All the editors were and writers were in
The
the
Wessels were there too?
Yep.
Stephanie and Byron?
Stephanie, yep. Byron hadn't started yet. So, Byron came along after I left, or right about the time I left, I guess. But yeah,
I love that paper.
Yeah, it's I always have a heart for weekly newspapers because that was my career, and just the amount of news that you can fit in a paper, and the variety of it. And I love the Star Beacon too, because you get that immediate sense of the news, and they can follow up as they need to. But a lot of times for me, the challenge was not just working Gazette and Star Beacon or versus Star Beacon or whatever, but anytime you live in a community that's got a daily newspaper or that instant source of news, because now where do we get our news from? Social media,
Right.
Or the little
We don't know if it's true or not.
or the little the groups that are like I'm a member of Jefferson Chatter, and because I live in Jefferson, so everybody's always talking Jefferson news, good or bad, they're talking about it.
Jefferson Chatter, that has a ring to it.
Yeah. So, and there may be a Conneaut Chatter. I don't know. There's Conneaut something. I know that. But the that sense of you're giving people news maybe a week or more later. What can you put in that article that they don't know or haven't heard? So you have to be thinking about those questions about okay, this was on social media here. Here's what the local radio station, or this is what Jim was talking about, or this is what was in the Star Beacon or another publication, maybe the Erie paper or the Cleveland papers. But what hasn't been there yet? What do people need to know about this? And whether that's updated information from what originally happened, or it's a question that that hasn't been asked yet. And so that was more of a challenge for me. I don't want to just repeat the same news that's out there. How do I give people a different angle on it? And actually that plays a lot into what I do today, because like I said, most of the remedies that you hear for common ailments are eat healthy, exercise, get enough sleep, reduce your stress. And if that cured every ailment, then that's great, but it doesn't. It may apply as that first step, but what are the other angles that go into that? I mean, how many different ways can you say, these are the 4 things you need to do? We have to find ways to redirect those questions, or get people thinking that, okay, I know I need to be, walking 30 minutes a day or doing 150 minutes of exercise a week, but we don't want to do that. So we have to find that motivation.
When you were the editor out there,
Yes.
And the writers write their story, did you give it the headline, or does the writer give their story their own headline? Because I've heard it both ways sometimes.
It depends. Usually I wanted a suggested headline, because they may have a better idea than me, or it lets me be creative because we got the basic headline there. Maybe I can be a little more creative or be alliterative or something without being sensational. I used to hate that when somebody would want to do a sensational headline for something, and it's like, that's not the story. You're just making yourself look good. We want I grew up kind of that old school journalism where you present the facts, let people make up their own minds. And the first time I went back to speak to a journalism class a few years after I graduated from college, they're like, well, how do you get your message across? I'm like, I don't have a message. The message is whatever the news story is. I may have an opinion, but when I'm writing a news article, my opinion doesn't matter. It's the facts of the detail. When I send stuff out from the hospital, it's the facts of the detail. It's not just what John thinks. I may come up with a story idea and talk to other people and get the information, but it's not my opinion on things. And if for some reason I put something out on social media or whatever, that I let people know that's my opinion. 3/4 of what we talked about today is my opinion on things, once we get beyond the healthcare stuff. So I think that journalists have a responsibility to always be seeking out the different sides of the story and let people make up their own minds.
Of all this stuff, John, that we talked about, and all the stuff that you've done in your career, do you have a favorite?
That's a question I didn't expect, but for the variety of things. There are times that I wonder if I went back to a certain point in my career, if I would enjoy that job as much, doing things the way I do now. My age, my experience, I guess we always think about, if I was 20, how would I react with what I know now that I'm in my 50s? Yeah, there's probably some times that I would want to go back and do different things, but I'm also intrigued as I get older by what's next, and what could I be doing 10 years from now that is either in the same field or something completely different. But it's like we were talking about faith earlier. There have been times in my career that I've been like, I don't know what's going to happen next week or next month, but I'm trusting in God that it's going to work out, not only in some ways in my favor, but that I find something that I enjoy doing. So I guess from the religious perspective, if He's got something different for me to do in 10 years, I'm looking forward to whatever that is. Mm-hmm. If I'm still doing the same thing I'm doing and doing it here, I will be happy with that. Or if, honestly, when we get older, we start thinking about moving away from the snow and ice some. Yeah. I wouldn't mind being down in the Ozark Mountains or somewhere else that, a little more, you get a little bit of snow, but not as much ice or different weather.
Well, from what I gathered from our conversation today, Mr. Broom, is you enjoyed everything that you've done here. I really believe that.
There's some days you slog
through. I really
through.
believe that.
Yeah.
Everything we talked about, I think, just listening to you talk was very interesting, and you loved every bit of it.
Yeah, it's.
And I think you would return to every one of them if you were given that opportunity.
Given the right situation, I probably would. Maybe more pay at the time. But who wouldn't?
That I get. Yeah.
I think part of it is. I've been at jobs where I've been completely frustrated about the way things are going in the moment and everything.
I think we've all had that moment.
Yeah, but at some point we have to decide, is that worth staying for? Or do I just need to get out because of my attitude, or am I really, how can I move on to something that's better for me and still contribute in ways that I want to contribute? And I know not everybody's like that. Some people that I have good friends, they're like, I show up to work because I'm getting a paycheck and I'm doing my job and I do it to the best of my ability, but I'm just focused on that paycheck. And other people are like, I don't care how much money I make as long as I help this many people.
Right.
We're all in between somewhere.
Exactly.
But if we can find those jobs that we are able to keep ourselves happy and help others, for me that's a good balance. But we have to be willing to make the decision and take the risk of what's next.
Did your wife ever get involved in any decision making on this job? Did you ever converse with her? Should I take this job? Should I not take this job?
Yeah, the couple of times that I didn't, it didn't work out as well. But generally we talk about probably every job that we were dating in college. So we've been married since basically my first real job after college. But yeah, we've talked a lot about, is this the right time to do something or not? And again, you talk different perspectives, somebody thinking differently than you. There's been a lot of times I've said, never thought about it that way. I'm glad I have somebody to bounce those ideas off of. And the move up here was one of them. I mean, we were living in another part of the country and we were content where we were, but is being content always enough?
Right.
Right. And there were advantages to moving up here, along with the risk of moving to a new part of the country, and you don't know what it's like, and you don't know as much about the job situation and everything, but I knew the first week that I was up here, this was the right move. And when she moved up here 6 months later, she agreed. This was exactly where we needed to be.
Continued success.
Thank you. Thank
John
you.
Broom.
And you
were
too.
Very
You too.
interesting. Very good. John Broom, of the currently the Public Media's Relation at ARMC, my guest today on Around the Town with Chuck.